Come with me, young Jedi. You have a decision to make. Because this is where all the magic happens. AR2. Dance program.
Hello again, YouTube. Welcome to another edition of Star Wars Collections and Displays, where we talk to collectors about their collections and their displays. As always, I'm Jack. Here with us, as always, is Jim. And we have a brand new collector talking with us today. His name is Scott. Scott, I'm going to give you a moment here. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your collection.
So my name is obviously Scott. I'm a network engineer, total computer nerd. That's what I do for a living. And collection, I've only been doing this. This is my second year. So it's all really new to me. And I've been learning a lot very quickly. And I've made some mistakes, but I've had some good successes. And it's a small room. This is my home office. This is where, when I'm not out in the field, I work from right here. And I was tired of looking at white walls and computer equipment. So I decided that Star Wars was my favorite thing when I was a kid. I see all these Star Wars collections. Let's give it a go. And here we are.
Fantastic. Very nice. So let's kind of jump right into it. What is it that you're collecting? Action figures, vehicles, helmets, lightsabers, comics?
Yes. The short answer to your question is yes. I'm really trying to focus on my vintage collection. Some of the rarer, harder to find things that I can really put on like a showcase and build a lighting system for. That's kind of my go-to right now. I'm starting to lean towards either graded figures or hot toys. I haven't decided which one I like or want more, but it will be one of the two. So.
Either one can be expensive, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true that.
And so as I look around, my question is there a particular scale or size that you're striving for? But as I look around, you're kind of all over the place. Not only do I see the 3 3/4 inch, I've seen some 6 inch, I see 12 inch. I've even seen some what appear to be either 1 inch or 2 inch.
Yeah, another one of my wife's contributions, the little minis to go with the action figures. I've got the 48-inch Battle Buddies. I mean, I buy things when I like them and I see them, and then I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then I bring it home, and then I decide what I'm going to do with it. That's pretty much why you see so much scale. But I do like to mix. Everyone has their niche and their thing. I don't really have one. My niche and my thing is to collect Star Wars. So I buy what I like and I make it work. So.
And so the things that you buy and bring home and then make a decision on, if it decisions the not aspect of it, where does it go? In a closet?
It goes into the basement, and there's quite a bit of stuff in the basement right now. Those 48-inch Battle Buddies are down there. I actually have quite a bit of stuff in the basement. And at some point when I have the ability to remodel my basement, this 20 by 20 room will become the entire basement, and I'll start all over. But for now, it's keep it, hold on to it, go from there. So
great. And is there a particular a series, a story, or a movie that you're trying to build the collection around, or is it just Star Wars in general?
Just Star Wars in general, but I do have a big soft spot in my heart from the originals. That's what I grew up with. That's where I came from. That's where it all started for me. So yeah, anything OG, I like to call it, because vintage doesn't fit the category anymore. Now there's 2 levels of vintage. Whenever you're searching online, that becomes a headache. So I just stick with the word OG. But, yeah.
And as we look around, and I think you said a moment ago or just before we went online that we only see about 60% of the collection. What, in regards to 100% of the collection, quantity, I mean, approximately how many pieces do you think you've collected?
Oh, that is a very good question. I have no idea as far as this room is concerned, but I do have proximity amount of what I have in the basement. There's probably another 600 to 700 pieces down there.
Wow. Wow. And all of this in the last 2 years.
I'm working on year 2.
Oh my God.
So,
I thought I had collected a lot in a short time, but
thank you, eBay.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Wow.
Incredible. And Scott, what is it about Star Wars that made you say, well, this is what I'm going to collect. This is my childhood. This is what I want it to represent me. Why Star Wars?
So when I was a very young man, I must have been 4 or 5, I lived in a small neighborhood, and I decided that without asking the permission of my parents, I was going to go on an adventure. And that adventure led me to a neighbor's house 2 or 3 blocks down the road, and they had the AT-AT, and it blew my mind. I was 5. This thing was massive. You know, I'm 6'6" now. It's tiny. I dwarf it. But when I was 5, it was like, whoa, that comes up to my forehead, you know? And then I saw the arms move and the little glassy pew, pew, pew. It just, I've been a fan ever since. That was the, yeah, that did it for me.
AT-AT.
I have said many times it's the memory road aspect of this series that I enjoy. How people, what their first introduction to it was, and maybe who had been contributed to that introduction. And it varies a lot. And in your case, you said it was a friend about 4 or 5 blocks down the road.
Well, yeah, and you know, that road has since become a main arterial, and that house sits right on the corner. And to this day, 39 years later, as I drive down that road, I look at that house and I think about that day and that AT-AT. And then I come home and I look at it right there. So, yeah.
And does that person still live there?
I doubt it. I don't think so. Like I said, I ventured out without asking my parents.
Oh.
So, you know, this was in the 80s. So a whooping followed that. I remember that too. But I do not know who that person was. I just randomly was walking down the road, and that's where I ended up. So,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. And if you did that these days, that could be a little frightening. You don't know who you're going to run into.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Even in the 80s, it could have been, instead of Adam, it could have been Scott.
Right.
So I did something similar when I was a little kid, and this would have been in the 60s. And my motivation was I was running away from home. I had already gotten the ass kicking or ass kicking, and I was upset, and I decided I was going to run away. And I had gotten up only a block down the street, and some older man was watering his lawn, and we obviously must have got into a conversation, and he suggested that I do the right things, and that was to go back home. And I ended up going back home, and that's the last of that memory I remember. But yes, I do remember 2 times in my life running away. And both times something happened that I was pointed back home. So it's interesting how that path ultimately works out. So the path that you're on in regards to your collection, your motivation for collecting, is it investment? Is it looks? Is it entertainment? Is it enjoyment? Is it an escape?
It's a bit of an escape. I work a lot. I work 60, 70, sometimes 80 hours a week. I'm self-employed and I'm a computer nerd. So yeah, it's an escape from the screen that we're on right now. I get to turn around and play with my toys at 40 something years old. I mean, who wouldn't want to? So yeah, it's definitely an escape for me. It's less about bragging rights, but I'm also a very competitive person, so it really is a lot about bragging rights, and hence some of the pieces I have in my collection. But I don't really get to brag about it because I'm only shining doing what I've been shown. You know, these guys like you that have been doing it for what, 30 plus years. I learned everything from you guys. I didn't know any of that. I came into this 2 years ago, right? So yeah, it's definitely about entertainment for the most part.
You had mentioned grading a moment ago, and that's a direction you're going to go. From what I've seen of the images that you've sent us, I've only seen one graded item, and that was the AT-AT Commander, if I recall right.
Yeah, who did I get that from?
Yeah.
That was actually a recent purchase from Jack. Thank you. Buy with confidence. Great guy. But no, I have Prune Face right here. He's 85, unpunched. Um, Another one over there. There's an R2D2 from the Silver series back there that's graded, and I actually have two of the Tuscan Raiders from the 2000 stuff. You know, a little bit not so overmade stuff down here. So I have a few, but yeah, they're just kind of tucked behind. They're not my pride and joy, if you will.
And the importance of the items that you're collecting, and it's really two questions there. Is there, as we spoke earlier, a particular series or movie that inspires you or excites you? And so is that a direction you go, like maybe all I want is original, as you called it, OG Star Wars stuff? Or in my case, the stuff I've collected, most of it was to be boxed as opposed to loose. But at the same time, because a lot of this stuff, as you're well aware of, can be expensive, price, which kind of also dictates quality. The lower the price, the lower the quality. Higher the price, the higher the quality. And so I come back and I ask the question, what is the importance of the individual items that you are collecting?
Well, ROTJ, right? And anything that comes with the original movie. If I see it and I don't have it, I will buy it. If it's in any kind of condition and I can wrap my hands around it, it's mine. I'm taking it. Um, as far as value, um, you know, the Razor Crest, the sail barge. I have the original Millennium Falcon and the Imperial Shuttle, and they're mint. You know, and I have the boxes for them. They're all in the loft in the garage and taken care of. Some of those, you know, Hasbro Plus items, I think are a really good investment. And if you can get the OG stuff, the OG ships mint, they're going to hold value for a long, long time in my appreciation. If I was going to buy something in 40 years, it would be that. Now, my kids, if they were going to buy something like that in 40 years, no, they're going to buy a Ray and a Ray, right? But I've always focused on buying that big item and then sizing it down and creating a diorama effect from there, right? Just throw in some lighting and Bob's your uncle. So, yeah.
I see. You know, I wanted to follow up on a couple things that you said. You talked about that there's a possibility that you're going to start collecting hot toys. You might have a few hot toys already. A possibility that you'll start like a graded collection. You have a few graded collection already. Which way are you leaning, and what is the kind of deciding factor between those two?
So aesthetically, hot toys. They're awesome. They're gorgeous. They're beautiful, and they're like nothing else. Like I got this big stormtrooper right here. It's one of my favorite pieces. Of course. Oh, you know what? I just realized I'm not even on the right camera, but I don't care.
No
So I have two
Jim will be
webcams,
able
and
to
I'm
put
not
it-
even on the right one.
Jim will put the stormtrooper up on the other screen, so no problem.
Yeah.
We can talk
So
about
yeah,
it.
I got this guy here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's one of my options. So
Right.
they're cool, but they're all kind of the same. You know, when you get a graded figure, there is a little bit more in depth to it. You can get a different number, a different grading. You can get punched, unpunched, 12 back, 20 back. There's so much to it. When you buy this, it's just a really cool piece that 28 other people already have. So, yeah, I haven't quite answered that question for myself, so I can't really answer for you. I'm still kind of 50-50 on that, but a decision will be made at some point. So.
Well, part of why I ask is because I have an OG loose collection, basically the collection that you see behind me here. And I also have an OG graded collection. My graded collection is actually a loose graded collection, not a mock graded collection. And I like being able to show people the collection behind me, but not touch that. But then if they want to see it closer, then I give them one of the graded ones in the acrylic and they can ooh and ah over that. And of course, they're all 85 or higher. You know, that's kind of part of my collection.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's 12 back, 20 back. There's, you know, mint on card, and then there's the loose, like the AT-AT Commander I gave you. I have one of each, and I could sit there and stare at them both and not answer the question. Because, to be honest with you, I want all three. I want the hot toys, I want the mock, and I want the other one. But yeah, nobody can afford that. I'm still trying to finish my last 17 collection, which we all know is no fun. So yeah, for me, I think I'll just probably get a whole bunch of both, and then as things progress and it builds, then I'll make my decision. These will go away. I will replace it with these, and I will build around them. So yeah.
Yeah, just kind of how you've been doing it the past 2 years, anyways.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Get in where you fit in, man.
And let me follow up with this as well. Talk to me a little bit about the difference between keeping it in the box, something mock, versus something loose. You know, you talked about some of the ships. You have the boxes, but you want to display them loose. What's the difference between that?
I struggle with that a lot. That is a hard one for me. Even when I buy the new figure that just came out, I have to buy two. And I might open one, I might not. There's such an environment, you know, and an economy in this world of collecting. And I would love to open it and display it, but not right away. Because what if it's worth $80 more in 6 weeks, right? You know, and I don't really care so much about that, but in my inner circle of local friend collectors, they kind of do. So they're always harping on me. Don't open that yet. And I'm like, but I want to. That's why I bought two. So yeah, that is a very hard thing to deal with, especially as a new collector, because 9 times out of 10, I don't know the value till it's too late. You know, I've got figures that I opened that I really wish I hadn't. I have that ship over there, that Imperial shuttle, that was in the box. I opened it. I got a really good deal at a yard sale on that ship, and I had no idea.
Are we talking it was in the original like 1983 box? Is that really?
I had no idea what kind of damage I was doing. But I was like, look, yay. So yeah, I'm very cautious now when it comes to that stuff, to just sit and learn, because I don't know yet. So I have to wait, and it's irritating. Every once in a while, if it's a figure that I really like a speeder bike or an AT-AT Commander or something that I really want, I'll just buy 3 of them. That's solution to the problem, right? There you go, LucasArts. Way to make money.
I bought one of those automated R2-D2s that stands about 18, 20 inches tall. Yes.
Right
yes.
There. Yeah.
And he comes into the room and does all the things.
He'll do hide and seek.
And when it arrived, it's never been taken out of the box. And I thought, I cannot take this out. And my hope was I could put it in the room, and as people came in, there would be a queue of some sorts, and it would go, you know, but it still had the factory tape on it. Even though the tape's yellow, it ain't ever been broke before. And I thought, can't open it up. Can't open it up. So I had to buy another one. And this one I ended up buying was a loose one just to have what I wanted. But yeah, I understand the challenge of, do I open it up or do I not open it up?
I'm a sucker for the droid. I didn't. That hit the mailbox. The first box came open. The second box came open, and out it came. I played with that for hours. But yeah.
So you said you've only been collecting for 2 years, but you were introduced or inspired a number of years back when you abandoned, ran away, or wandered away from home.
Yeah.
So in that period of time, was it just in the back of your mind? Didn't think about it?
It was, but you know, I've always kind of been a nerd, but I've also been a jock. You know, I played basketball, I played football, and there's that dynamic of nerd versus jock. You know, I got made for playing Magic with my nerd friends at lunch, and then my nerd friends would make fun of me for dunking on fools after school. You know, I was always kind of never really fit into either one, but kind of did at the same time. And yeah, it was always in the back of my mind. But they were toys, you know, and we grew up in this generation where you didn't play with toys. And if you did, it wasn't good. See what I'm saying? But then I grew up and I was like, you know what? I'm going to play with toys. You guys are idiots, right? So yeah, but the movies, the lightsaber was always on my mind. Once that seed was planted, it didn't matter. It was always there, just kind of waiting to grow. And then, you know, a couple of years ago, I just decided to go for it. So yeah.
Interesting. I, as a little kid from the 60s, you know, had Matchbox cars, Hot Wheels, Tonka toys, those kind of things. And we would, you know, create cities in the dirt alongside the sidewalk and something. And I remember two things distinctly. One, we were on this trip back to South Dakota, 1965, and my dad approached me and I was playing with my GI Joe. And he says, "Those are dolls. Why are you playing with dolls? Boys don't play with dolls." And it kind of created a little bit of a stigma or issue. And I think I probably abandoned the GI Joe stuff. I can also remember him one time approaching me when I had the Hot Wheels and the Matchbox cars out of there and had this whole city sculpted in the dirt along the sidewalk. And he says, "When are you going to grow out of that?" And just from both those times, those things that I was doing, I ended up abandoning. And I never got back into them at all. And Star Wars came out in what, 78, 77? And I enjoyed the Star Wars movies, but I never had a Star Wars item until about 3 years ago. And then, like you, it was just like, just got sucked right on into it. Next thing I know, I max out 2 credit cards and have no money in my 401k any longer. It draws you in. I keep kind of, anybody asks, why are you collecting? And the only answer I can come up with is I'm trying to recapture my childhood.
Yeah, essentially, that's essentially what we're doing, right? I mean, I wish I would have started way earlier, but I grew up pretty predominantly poor. We were not wealthy people, not a wealthy. We had a big, huge family. We all loved each other. Life was good. There wasn't extra money, so when my birthday came up, I got a basketball from my grandma every year. We didn't have a lot of money, so it was always sports and athleticism because unlike the kids today, I mean, I have 4 kids, so I can say this accurately. Unlike the kids today, we woke up and left the house. That was our internet, the world, right? So to have a basketball and have a football, you could go to a park and interact with people. And my parents knew that. And they, I got this social ability and the gift of gab. I'm a computer nerd and I can have a conversation with anybody, so it worked out. But I don't think I've ever had a GI Joe that I didn't buy for myself. I've never had a Star Wars figure that I didn't buy for myself. I did have, I remember as a very young kid, I don't remember what they're called, but the Transformer cats that you could build into the bigger one. What were those called? Oh, I can't remember what that is. Little cats, and you could build them into the bigger cat. You walk around kind of like Transformers.
Was that a Voltron?
Voltron. Yeah, I had those when I was real little, and then a couple He-Man figures. That was about it, man. And then my brothers and sisters were born, and things got even tighter. And that all hit basketball, football, baseball, rollerblades, man. That was it every year. So yeah,
interesting.
So I'd like to ask some questions now about the display aspect or how you're displaying your stuff. And I want to start first with the space, the room, the area that your display is in. We've done some people where it was the entire basement. We've done some people where it was one corner of the room. We've done other people where it spilled into a second room and down the hallway. From what I see here, this is an entire room dedicated to Star Wars collectibilia.
Yeah, this is my home office. It's 12 by 18 standard size bedroom. It's just a spare bedroom in the house.
And in that closet behind you, I know is more stuff.
Yeah, so I was like, why don't I put a curtain on this and put some shelves up and voila, more space, right? I wasn't hanging anything in there, so yeah.
And then you've also mentioned you've got about 40 or 60% more down in the basement.
I do have quite a bit more down in the basement. There's a lot of stuff still in boxes. I probably have 200 unopened droids in my basement. I'm a sucker for droids, dude. You name it, any droid. Yeah.
So the next question is, how are the items displayed and they shelved, pinned, suspended? And I think you hit all 3 of those.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I started with shelves, the KP shelves, the Cabinetry. The reason I wanted those was for 2 reasons. Number one, so I could do the lighting strips and put them in an angle and point them out, because I learned from these ones behind me, these discs, that if you're not at the right height, at the right angle, you can see that LED. And I didn't like that. So with these, they go on the corner and they're at an angle and they just shoot right at the figure. So it doesn't matter where you're standing, you never see that individual LED. And also, I could adjust height because, like I said, I don't do 3.75, 6 inch. I do whatever I want, and then I adjust the shelf to where I want to fit it. Right.
Versatility.
So, absolutely. Yep. And then I moved to the glass shelf. I actually have 5 of these. And when I finish the basement, there's 4 of these big ones, and there's a smaller one in the center, so it kind of wraps around the corner. And that will be a huge focus, is the glass shelves. I know there's a lot of reflection, but dusting that takes 10 minutes. Dusting the other ones takes a lot longer. So, yeah.
The one thing I have found, and the word dusting comes up quite often in these discussions, and the irony is I don't think I've ever dusted once.
I dust every quarter.
I think the reason behind that is I've got in the other room coins that are displayed with mermaids in there on glass shelves, and you can see the dust on the glass shelf, but you put it onto a black tabletop or bookcase, you tend to not see the dust. So there's a way of decreasing that maintenance by hiding it.
Well, these shelves have glass doors that close. So the amount of air that gets in there is way less. So I literally, every quarter, when taxes are due, I sit at home and cry about all the money that I gave away to the government, and then I dust. Every quarter I dust. And that glass shelf, a little bit of Windex where you open the shelves up and a little duster, it's done in like 5 seconds. But, like I said, those doors close in the front end, so.
Yeah, speaking of those self-employed quarterly estimates, mine have gotten so bad I got to pay them monthly now.
Me too. I think they did that to everybody.
I did it on my own because I thought in 3 months I got to come up with that kind of money.
Right.
It's a little bit easier for me to do it monthly with this kind of money. But I was telling somebody earlier today, I used to pay a few $100s every quarter. Now I'm paying thousands of dollars every quarter. What's wrong? Did my new tax lady not do my taxes correctly, or for some odd reason is this just now costing me more, or I'm being taxed more? But that's a whole nother thing I don't want to go into. So
I saw my end of year and almost had a heart attack. I was like, wait, what? How much?
And on top of it, I had forgotten to make one of my quarterlies last year, so my end of year was more. But in regards to the displays, so what I see back there are adjustable shelves. You've mentioned the glass display cases. I see black, I assume wooden cabinets hanging on the wall. I see wooden shelves on the back. Tell me more about those. What are they all made from? Where did you get them?
So those are actually where I started. This wall behind me was my first attempt at doing a display. And those are just your run-of-the-mill cube shelves from, the name of the company eludes me.
Out of Sweden?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Yeah. You got this one, and then you got the little one in the middle, and then the one on the side. And the reason I went with IKEA, yeah, that one. The reason I went with those was because of that barge. I didn't want that up really high. I wanted that at like eye level. And I thought, as I did by putting it on its side and then building it up and then around it, it just worked for me. And the little black shelves with the droids and the original characters on it, I got those at Michael's and they were on sale. It was buy one get one free, so I think I got both of those for like $80. The LED light switch is hot garbage. It needs to be taken apart and repaired at some point because you wiggle the switch and they'll get brighter and dimmer. But the concept of it was good. I think 20 minutes of my time and a little bit of hot glue, I can fix it. But yeah, that was my motivation on there. I tried many other things, and I looked. I even had a couple guys come out and give me bids to build custom cabinets. They never came back. They just, oh yeah, here's it. Poof, gone. So IKEA, ship it.
So you touched on a word just a moment ago, and we also kind of briefly discussed this before we went live tonight, but your lighting. And I'm going to once again compliment you. I think lighting and the display that one sets up go hand in hand and are essential. And not everybody is into illuminating their stuff. And there's a lot of different ways one can go about it. Your lighting is exceptional and impressive. You've got a wide variety of stuff, and some of it, there's a point there where in one of the videos you sent me, you had said, Alexa, turn the lights on.
Now you know why I'm wearing a headset, because I knew you were going to do that. They would have blown me away.
Hold on, I have to turn my lights off at this point.
Tell us about your lighting.
So the lighting was, I've always built something and then brought the lighting to the table later. And lighting is actually kind of special to me because my wife interacts with that, you know, like the little characters that I have with the big ones. The second thing that she contributes is the lighting. She loves lighting, flashy things, rainbow colors. She loves every second of it. And like the shelf I have that has the addressable LEDs and the firework thing, I actually built hand soldered a little controller for that. Downloaded a program called WLED, which is free open source software, and just started programming it, right? And then once I saw what it was capable of, it was like, all right, now let's wire it. Now what do I have to buy to hang it on the wall and make it not look stupid? And those little angles things on the KP shelves. What I have found with lighting is build your display first and then go through the painstaking process of taking your display apart and putting your lighting in after the fact. And if you put it back and it ain't right, take it out again and do it right until it's right. Because the right lighting can take a mediocre square from IKEA and make it brilliant, you know? So I don't think I'll ever quit with the lighting. I think that'll be an ongoing thing. Even if I quit buying Star Wars toys, I will continue to upgrade my lighting for sure. So, yeah.
I had built all the cabinetry in here and did each wall one step at a time and spent time thinking about how it was going to be built and how wide it would be and what was going to be held on it. And so all the cabinetry is made for the specific items. And a couple of times I've tried to move things around, but go, well, this won't work here anymore because I made the shelf this high to accommodate this. Or I made this shelf here and it has to be wider and it won't work there. My lighting consists essentially of two versions. What I saw you had, and I'll call them puck lights, which are flat discs that go on the underside of a shelf. And then little spotlights that I built beams that extend outward so that light could be directed specifically towards certain things.
Those are called can lights, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And when I was in college back in the 80s, one of the classes I took was stage lighting. And so that's always stuck with me. I've got two lights here in front of me. And as I mentioned before the video went live tonight, I need some backlighting now. So I'm always thinking in terms of lighting. So I very much appreciate what you've added to your lighting collection as well, and that you're sharing it with us. One of the videos that you sent to me, you've got, I forget what you called it, but it's lighting that streams across the top of the display going around the room or something like that.
Those are individually addressable LEDs. So for this chair, for example, there's a few LEDs in here, and then there's this foam, and it makes it look like a strip. But those are actually, you know, you can see them. Those are actual LEDs. Well, those strips that I showed you, there's 300 per strip, and I can program each light individually. I can make it a color, I can make it move, I can make it static, I can make it do whatever I want. So it's essentially unlimited to the imagination. As long as you inject the power and do the power correctly, you can make an infinite amount of strips and use one controller to program every light. I could put 10,000 LEDs in here and make them do whatever I want. Right? The key is, when you see in the video, you'll see as it makes the firework and it goes pew and it blows up, is I have it set to skip every pixel because I want it to look like a firework explosion, so it doesn't look like a band of light. But I have what's called a diffuser. It's a little thing that you put in the wall. You put the strip in it, and then the white plastic tip goes over the front of it, and it kind of helps that separation. And these LEDs, they have different counts. You can get a strip with 50, 66, 120. I got the 300 because it was the biggest, flashiest one you could get, and it was only like $7 more than the cheap one was, so I went for it. But yeah, the individual lighting it requires a little bit of knowledge. You can't just buy it, take it out of the strip, stick it on the wall, plug it into a USB port. It takes a little bit of effort, but it is well worth it.
And then along the lines of the lighting, there are shelves that have different colored lights in them.
That is the second part of that strip. So that first strip you see, and then in the corner, I hide it with those boxes up there, but it connects to that one. So when I'm in the software, I go from 1 to 300, and then I make that firework thing. And then I go from 301 to 325, and I made it the red strip, and then the green strip. And then you can see what I'm saying. So yeah, it's all one big strip. But like I said, you can program each light individually. So.
And then the one thing that really impressed me, and I think one other person we interviewed might have had this, and I think at one time I even might have had it in my Amazon shopping cart, but you have ethereal, I don't know if that's the right word, lighting in the ceiling.
Oh, I call that Marvin the Martian.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a Amazon special. It's got a little green laser that does the little stars, and then it has the comet or whatever.
Yeah.
So actually, I have a bunch of those, and we got those for my grandson when we found out we were going to have one. And yeah, so one of them ended up in here, and it was Marvin the Martian because it looks like a little alien, and it's not alien, but an astronaut in his little space suit, and he's got his little base, and you can point him where you want. Yeah. If you're into lighting, you got to have one of those because it's fun to just turn the lights down and hit that and just turn around. It's just amazing. It's awesome.
Yep. And I'm going to definitely, that'll be in the next window there, and you'll be able to get a chance to see that. So the items that are displayed, how are they displayed? Is it by age? Is it by episode? Is it by character? Is it by scene?
A little bit of both. I kind of try to take you to another or a world for every shelf. So every shelf that you're looking at is a piece of me trying to do one of those things. You got Hoth, the cantina, but then above that you have a bunch of random Darth Vader. So like I said, I buy so much stuff and I don't think about any of that I try to integrate it. But like in the glass case, I have a lot of my original OG stuff and a lot of my original action figures. I try to make every shelf an experience, if you will. But there's no rhyme or reason for any of it. I'm just doing it because it fits, it looks good, I like it, essentially.
And my last question along the lines of the display aspect of it, is it expandable?
Yeah, it's pretty much all expandable. Especially with those KP shelves.
Those of us with the disease, it's always expandable.
Right? I told myself I'd never hang anything on the wall. I lied. Yeah. But yeah, that's another reason I wanted to go with the KP and the glass shelves. Is everything's up and down. I don't have a lot of left and right, but I can expand and change and move. With the amount of space that I've taken up in this room, there's not a lot of room for expansion. It's pretty much if I want to put up something new, I have to take something else old and retire it to the basement. But I'm not really concerned about that right now because my basement's 3 times this size, and essentially it will become the Star Wars room. So yeah.
It's always expandable. My hallway is pretty cluttered. There's a 270 or 144 count Hot Wheels displays out there. There's Hot Wheels carded figures going up and down. There's Popeye. There's the Flints, not the Flintstones, the Munsters. There's Beavis and Butthead, and actually the other day just bought Bullwinkle and Rocky along with Snidely Whiplash. Who's the Canadian Mountie guy?
Yeah,
And
you're aging yourself with all of those. Did you get Snagglepuss too?
not yet. And this morning, right now, they're all sitting on the floor in the living room just so I can kind of think about them and look at them because I haven't figured out where I was going to put them. And this morning, I brought two of them, Rocky and Bullwinkle, into the hallway. And I thought, okay, right underneath the Popeye and olive oil, there's a section along the side of this picture. And oh gosh, two of them side by side. And oh, I can fit 8 of them here.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
So actually, that closet, there is another guest room right there. And there was talk about knocking that wall down. The problem is when I had the surveyors come in over on this side that you can't really see in the camera, the main power service to my house runs right through that closet extension. So I would have this big pony wall, and yeah.
Yeah, well, that pony wall can be another place to affix items to.
Yeah, I abandoned. Go to the basement. It's bigger. The basement's still bigger than this room and that room anyway.
So we just reposted a video from, I'm trying to remember the guy's name in Long Island. You just reposted it in Facebook the other night where the entire basement had become his Star Wars room. And I'm thinking you're going to move the stuff out of this room down into that basement, and the entire basement is going to become the Star Wars room.
I think this room will stay the way it is because I said this is my home office. I might switch and actually create a theme here and create another theme down there. But I don't think I'm going to stop anytime soon. I'm going to take all the real estate I can get, essentially. This ain't leaving. This is staying.
That's awesome. And when you decide to expand the collection a bit, where are your sources? Talk to some of these collectors out there. Where are you buying your stuff? Where do you get the best deals?
First thing I'll say is be careful. There's a lot of scammers out there. Watch Facebook, man. It is dangerous. I got took a couple times, and as a novice, I learned real quick that not everybody's nice on the internet. I use a lot of Mercari, and I use a lot of eBay, and I use a lot of Marketplace. But I found local guys just by looking at their listings. And instead of just going, hey, you want to meet me here at 5 o'clock so I can buy this thing? I would actually reach out to them and have a conversation with them. And I found a circle. And I also circled back and re-met these people later at all of my local toy stores. And that's where all the magic happens. Anyone can go on eBay and bid on something. It's not brain surgery. It's not rocket science. But when you have a circle and you want something and you reach out to one person, you talk to 50 people. Next thing you know, not only are you getting it, but you know its history, where it came from, if it's original, and they're probably going to give you a good price. And I guarantee you they're going to come deliver it at your house because they want to see what you're doing because it's a big pissing contest anyway. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously the internet, but if as a new collector, my advice to any new collector would be to reach out local. It's harder, it's more work, and it's personal. You have to have a personality, you have to meet and talk to people, but it is so worth it. And they're like-minded people. So even if you're antisocial and afraid, they're just as antisocial and afraid as you are, and you have the same interests. You're going to bloom and learn something anyway. So I say that would be my advice for sure.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
That's really
That's
good
great.
insight.
Yeah.
So I've made a number of questions or notes here in regards to your collection, and I want to break from our normal questions and kind of go through a number of these. The first thing that I wanted to ask about, and it seems I don't see it in your background there now, but it was very prominent in a lot of the videos. You've got a life-size Salacious Crumb.
Yeah. Yeah, he sits on your shoulder. He's got a little wire and a little magnet that sits on your shoulder. And he talks. He goes, and his head moves and his mouth moves. It's hilarious. You know, that's only a $50, $60 piece, right? And they make the colored one, the red and blue and green and yellow one. That was a buddy of mine went to Las Vegas for vacation, and he, out of my love for Star Wars, just him constantly hearing about what I'm doing, he went to a Star Wars place and he found that for me and he bought it and he brought it home. And I've been in love with it ever since. I've never seen it in anyone else's collection. So, yeah.
One of the other things that really stood out to me, and it's directly behind you, is that Jabba the Hutt sail barge.
Yeah,
And
that's my private area.
that is, I think, the largest toy, Star Wars toy, that is available.
I
And I've heard
think.
that it comes in a huge box.
Oh yeah, it's large. It's twice as big as the Razor Crest.
Mhm.
Much larger. I think the Ghost might actually be bigger than this in some sort of scale wise, but they're close. But yeah, I mean that's an 8 cube IKEA shelf, so that gives you an idea. It takes up 3/4 of it. It's huge. It's massive. Yeah.
And not only is it an impressive collectible, but there's a lot of figures that are inside of it. And do the figures come with the barge, or you have to purchase the figures separately?
It comes with the coined yak face. He was off to the side there, and it comes with Java. That is it. So I actually got that from a friend, Troy, great friend of mine. He will be watching this. He is actually one of my main local contacts. He's been a huge inspiration. He's got a massive collection, and he was selling that on Facebook. That was my first large purchase. Before that, it was all, power of the force, $6 here, $7 there. But I saved up for that and I bought it. And at first, he didn't want to sell it. He had it listed, and he was like, I was talking to the wife. She said no. I was like, all right, I get it. And that was actually where the first time I got scammed was in my purchase for that particular thing. Well, he had reached out to me shortly later, and he was like, hey, you still want to buy that? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, all right, I'll throw in all the figures. So actually, all those individual figures inside of that, he sold me as well. And he didn't make a lot of money. He gave me an astronomically good deal, and I've been purchasing from him locally ever since. We do a lot of back and forth now. So yeah.
And then you've also added lighting to that sail barge.
Yeah, once or twice trying to figure it out. That is a very complicated thing to light.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The pucks underneath were easy. Make it look floating. That took 2 seconds. But to get lights inside of it, it's a whole another ballgame. Yeah.
Now, there were two other items that stood out to me for a couple of reasons. One is the white Rancor, and the other was where do I have it written down? The Tattletale droid. And what stood out to me about both of those items is you said they were 3D printed.
Yeah. So, good friend of mine, Richard. If anyone wants to be introduced to him, he's amazing. From file to print to paint to your door, he is amazing at what he does. It's an art piece, so it's made to be looked at from a distance. It's not mass produced like the sail barge and perfect, right? But he's really good at what he does, and his prices are fair. And so I just want to give him a huge shout out because both of those items were made by him. And that Rancor, he actually printed it, and it was a little bit of an error because of the foot. Well, he painted it white, and I saw that, and I was like, I have a couple prototype Bobas that I have triplicates of that I would love to make that scene of Boba riding the Rancor, right? And I have a prototype helmet. I'm like, this is perfect. So he finished painting it, and a little bit of back and forth, the red tongue, the black around the fingernails, and that showed up at my door. I think it's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. I love it. Every second of it. It is amazing. And the Tattletale droid was actually my idea.
Uh-huh.
And we went and found a file. So somebody beat me to the idea, but I thought it was my idea, essentially. But I wanted to put an antenna, like for your car, one of those electric antennas, and make the thing move back and forth. So someday I might actually have one of those, but I wanted him to send me the proof of concept from the print, and he actually printed that for me too. That's another one of my. I'm a big droid guy, and when that thing pops out at R2 and C3PO, woo, his eyes all. I'm like, oh, so yeah, I had to have it. Absolutely, yeah.
The world of 3D printing has improved so significantly. It was about 10 years ago that I kind of got introduced to it and saw the potential, but I never really was able to grasp how to handle the files and such. And so I ended up selling it away and never really pursued it since. But it was just very basic things at the time. And now with what I've seen, that's impressive work.
Yeah, I mean, the files and the people who are designing the files and these new 3D scanners, that has helped quite a bit. But it's still an art. It's a skill. It's not a Xerox. It's not an Epson. You don't just plug it in and hit print. It requires a lot of things and stuff, which my guy Richard, he has mastered. And then there's the painting. I've got my blasters with Luke and Leia. He made those for me too. And just the little handheld details and little swishes and swashes. A lot of people can't do that. And to find one person that can take the file, run the print, and he has like, I don't know, 6 printers, so he does it in like 3 days. It's amazing. Glue it all together, make it look presentable, and then paint it and present it to you. There's not a lot of people that do that. And he my other thing about printing is I'm a little bit of a purist. I don't like reproduction stuff to taint my originals, if you will. I mean, I don't mind it as long as they're logged. Everything that I have is a repro. I have a log of it. But a lot of people use that as their outlet for 3D printing. They want to make the little blaster. They want to make the little pieces and parts. But to take and make a Rancor and an albino Rancor and a Tattletale droid, I mean, that's where it's at. That's what 3D printing should be to me.
Moving through my list, one of the things that I did see, and also I think it was another guy out of New York or Long Island that had this as well, but the Chewbacca bandolier.
Oh yeah, I got that still in the box. It's right up there. You caught that. You got quite the eye.
Yeah,
I got that from a local guy. And it's a funny story. I was going to buy it and he told me the price and I went, ugh. And he went, yeah, but look at this dork. Don't you want to look at this dork on the box every day? And I was like, yeah.
It is a little dorky kid on there, if I remember.
Yellow
right.
shirt, dude. Oh, that's
great. Let's see what else was in here. There was helmets. I think I counted 3 helmets.
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in this room, 7 in this room.
Okay.
Yeah. I got the wolf helmet, the new one that everyone was getting from Ollie's, the prototype Boba, the Scout Trooper. I got Darth and the Stormtrooper right there, and then Boba Fett. And I can't remember if that's an artillery trooper, the Stormtrooper with the yellow. I think it's an artillery trooper. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think I have a lot of the Mandalorians. Mandalorian, Bo-Katan, and a couple other Mandalorian helmets downstairs.
2 other things that you had that stood out to me was the Leia and Han blasters.
So again, my buddy, the 3D printer guy, right? Amazing. And those are towel hangers that I got off of Amazon for $8.
Okay, so I remember hearing what you said about them, but I didn't catch it. Is that the I love you and I know part of it?
Yeah. And I was like, some people come home and they hang up their towels, but these two, they hang up their blasters. I thought it was great.
And then, as you've mentioned already, you like droids.
I am a total sucker for droids. Yeah. R2D2 is by far my favorite character.
There was one thing that really stood out to me, and you referred to it as an 8-track. An 8-track of what?
That is an 8-track of the sounds from the movie.
Okay.
So like R2 whistling and C3PO and the ships and the Millennium Falcon and the pots and pans they bang together to make whatever. It's all of those sounds on that 8-track.
And it would only be able to be played on an 8-track player.
Yes, and I do not have one. I called my Uncle Steve. He said he would go dig in the garage, so I'll record it for you.
I have a scar on my shin down here. That's the result of an 8-track player. I drove a Dodge Challenger into a tree back in South Dakota, and in the process of stepping on the brakes, I jammed the eject switch up into my shin from that 8-track player. But I do remember 8-track players. They were so cool.
Amazing. Well, you could take your music on the go, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I grew up more in the cassette era, but I had a couple of tracks.
Yes. So there was one other thing that I really took a fancy to, and that is you have what I believe you called an N-saber lightsaber.
Best gift ever. You want to talk about having good friends? Go meet your local nerds and take care of each other. Because that Obi-Wan end saber right there was a gift. I didn't pay for that. That was given to me by my bud Rod Seagraves. Was man, what's this? One of the best friends ever. But yeah, that thing. You have your $200 saber, your $100 saber. They're cool. That that is an orgasm. Compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
Yeah, it's not just something that turns on and glows like a stick. It does tricks.
It does tricks, absolutely. Yeah, and many tricks at that. I mean, you can pick your character, pick your song, pick your brightness. I mean, short of taking it apart and reprogramming it myself, it's awesome. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
You had, and I think it must be on a different, oh no, it is directly behind you, a Han Solo in carbonite up there, and you made reference to the fact that you had even a bigger one.
Yeah, so that door, when I remodeled this room, I never finished the door because my intention is to take one of those wraps and make the door carbonite Han. But as you can see, I still didn't get to that. But, yeah.
We did, I think it was maybe our third or fourth interview. Again, another guy out of Long Island. He had that big door size
Yeah.
version. Quite impressive. Now, the one that you have on the wall up behind you also has lighting in it.
Yeah, it's got the red lights that shoot up.
Shoot up from the bottom, so you get that kind of ghostly look.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's got a little base, but I decided to hang it on the wall. It's a perfect spot right there for it. So.
And there's also a Leia in carbonite.
Oh yeah, that is another 3D print. Obviously, can't get that unless somebody 3D prints it. But yeah, the carbonite Leia, that was extremely expensive, and it was one of my first 3D printing purchases. That and the little table and chairs for my Han and Greedo scene. And the Han and Greedo scene stuff was okay, but it was a little underwhelming. That was when I learned that 3D printing was made to be looked at a distance, you know, the lines and stuff. And of course, it wasn't painted. But when I got that carbonate Leia, and I'm a huge Leia fan, droids number one, Leia number two, and I thought it was cool. And I don't think I've met anybody else that has one. So.
We've not seen one so far. So let's see. 70s large figures. 70s large figures. 100% oh, okay. So that was part of your various scenes or dioramas. There was a Hoth scene, a Jabba torture. Yeah, the Jabba torture scene where the droids are in, where they were being hung upside down or something like that. And then there was a building an R2D2 scene. And the question that I had when I saw those was, are those what I would call sets or play sets, or did you create those?
The Jabba and the Build an R2, those are playsets that had to be completed, right? They're still out there. You can still get them. I'm sure a lot of people have those, but yeah, that's a little bit of creativity because you know everybody could have one, but you put your own touch on it, and it's droids, so obviously I had to have them both. Right? The large figures, that was full send for me. That was breaking rates because those are hard to find, and I have all these little accessories. Those two stupid little brushes, those little blue hair brushes
for
those,
Leia. And I thought, well, they reminded me of Barbie or something.
$200 for the brushes. I have to say that is not a cheap setup, and they're all mint and they're all perfect and they're all complete.
And you referred to them as 70s large figures, 100% complete. What do you mean by 70s?
They're all 77, 78, 79. I think there are some of the 80s. I think maybe IG-88 was the last one I think that was released, and he made.
Are they considered the 12-inch figures?
They're not 12-inch. They're
okay.
The new ones are 12-inch. The originals were called large figures, right? Yeah, and the Boba Fett was signed by Jeremy Bullock, and that's where that whole part of that collection started from. I was like, oh, because I got that and I looked at how much they were going for. what? So then, of course, I had to go full set. But yeah, that's an expensive shelf, and I'm very proud.
And one of the things that stood out to me, and it kind of confused me in regards to the size, because I kept looking at the figures and there's a difference in the size, but mini Funko Pop?
Oh, yeah, those are brand new. Are you talking about the ones that were in front of the large size
Yes,
12
and they
inch,
were like
16
a
inch?
little three
Yeah,
or four of them in a little container.
you can get those at any Target.
Okay.
But they're just little bitty
Yeah, I
Funkos.
looked at them. I thought, okay, if
Yeah.
those are Funko Pop, then how big are these 70s figures that we have now?
No, they're, I think Darth and IG-88 and Chewbacca are like 16 inches. And then your R2 is about 5 or 6 inches, right? So they vary in size.
And then one other thing that stood out to me quite a bit, and I've not seen this at all in any of the interviews we've done so far, but as opposed to grading figures, and one of the advantages of a graded figure is it comes in that acrylic case. You have a number of cylindrical containers that either the figure was placed on top of or the figure was inside of. I've not seen that before. Tell us a little bit about those.
So, in my endeavors of learning, I lost a couple of expensive um, blasters, we'll call them pew pews, and I had to replace them. And I looked at the price that I paid for these and the price it cost to replace them. And then I looked at how much dust was collecting on them. And I was like, you know what? I bet you there's a solution for this. And sure enough, I found a round cylinder that I could put over the top that, one, keeps the dust out. Two, I'm not going to lose all those little parts and pieces when I take it to dust underneath it. It's going to sit in the table. I'm not going to lose it. And three, they're UV protected. So that was just me being lazy. That's kind of how that came apart.
And where would those containers, where would you get those from?
You can get those on Amazon. They make the square ones and they make the circle ones, and they'll make the smaller ones for R2. And I also recently just came across the fact that you can get custom size with the coin adapter. Like I have Roomba up front there and the coin next to them. And you can get those those are custom made on eBay. But the tubes with the black bottoms, I get those on Amazon. I think they're, the more you buy, the better the deal you get. But I think they're about $3-4 each.
Are they sold intentionally for putting collectibles in, or is it some other use that they're intended for and you just repurposed it?
This is, I'm pretty sure, what they're used for. This, whenever I looked them up, this is what they had inside their GI Joe, He-Man. It's for scale, right? But I assume that's what they've been made for.
And speaking of the various parts and the blasters and things, I know in conversations I've had with Jack, of which I do have to kind of make a mention. Jack has a what's the word I'm looking for? He had the wherewithal years ago when he was a kid to start acquiring things, not opening up the package and storing them in the garage. And first of all, to be able to have that and not want to go out and open them up, or to buy them with the intent of putting them in the garage, is certainly impressive. But he also does a another YouTube series called Jack in the Box, where what he does is he goes out and he opens up these boxes and takes the stuff out.
That's got to be so fun. I envy you so much. I'd have a heart attack. But yeah, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that I have out in my garage, it's been in storage for the past 25, 30 years. And it's just, it kind of just happened because we were living in Florida and we had to move back to Los Angeles. And my parents just said, just put everything in the box and we'll move it back to LA. I ended up leaving before my parents left. And so they were kind of responsible for getting all the boxes together. And they ended up just putting it in the garage here. And it just, I, at one point, for 20 years, I wasn't living in this house. I was living elsewhere. After my dad passed away, I moved back in here. All the boxes were still in there. And I was like, now's the time to open these up. And I don't remember what's in either box. So it is interesting to see it again.
So you're just as excited to see what's in there as we are. That's great.
I can't wait. Yeah, absolutely. It's been fun.
So who in your household is the collector?
Me. I'm well, I think I'm starting to rub off on people too, because my wife has been buying a lot of those gnomes, those little gnome things. But She has like 7 of them. So I guess that's a collection. But yeah, I'm the collector for sure.
But you've also made reference to she adds a lot of those little tiny Lego and miniature figures.
My wife, I could take her to a dollar store and she will find the Star Wars stuff before me. And she'll tell me if it's any good or not. And she's almost always right. She's so fun to shop with because she has the itch just as much as I do. So yeah,
So
definitely.
I think she's a little bit of a collector too then.
Essentially, yeah. All those little tiny minis with the bigger, that was her idea. All the micro machines, that's the kind of stuff that she remembers when she was a kid, was the micro machines playing with her brothers. So yeah, that's all her for sure. And the little Legos, all her. Yeah.
So in regards to collecting, and we know that you've only been doing this for the last 2 years, would you consider yourself obsessive, compulsive, budgeted, under control, out of control?
um, Given my budget, I would say I'm in pretty good in control. My impulse control is good, but when I see something I want, I will have it. So yeah, yeah, there's definitely a balance there. But I don't just leave the house going, I'm going to buy a bunch of Star Wars stuff today. That's not what I. Well, yeah, that doesn't happen very often, I should say. But when I do see something I want, if I can't find it locally, I will go out and get it. So yeah, I would say I'm under control, but I tend to sometimes be a little impulsive.
And aside from yourself and your immediate family, who sees your collection?
Um, my buddy Troy. I'm the admin of a lot of Star Wars groups, so I get to share with them. We do a lot of giveaways and things, and whenever we do a giveaway, I secretively don't tell them what the prize is going to be, so I can do a FaceTime with them and show them my collection and get to know them, so I can figure out what they want. So they get to show me theirs, I get to show them mine. It's kind of fun. I have a lot of buddies who I have met in the Star Wars world that are now friends that come to my house and they look at it. But yeah, for the most part, it'd probably be my friend Troy. He comes over a lot, and yeah, I'd say if anybody has seen my collection as much as me, it would be him. So
To those that would be the first time they're seeing your collection, as opposed to those who've seen it before, what is the most general reaction or comment?
yeah. When they walk through the door the first time, oh wow, it's everywhere. Uh-huh. You want to see the cool ones first? Here, come here. Yeah.
And Scott, would you say that you have a favorite item, or even maybe like kind of like a showcase item? Like when you say, hey, do you want to see the cool ones first? What are the cool ones first?
I think my first 12, original 12 with the mail-in stand is probably my closet secretive favorite. The second item I got scammed on trying to buy that thing, right? But I just think that's really cool. It's really nostalgic because not a lot of people have it, and when they do, they show a lot of pride in it. So even though a lot of us have it, we all show pride in it. And as a new collector trying to learn, showing pride in your stuff is that. So yeah, that's probably the one right there. That's usually where, check this out. That one's worth a lot of money.
That original 12 stand. Yeah, that's awesome.
First 12. Right? Yeah.
And do you have like a favorite movie from the Star Wars saga, or even like a favorite show at this point?
ROTJ all day.
Return of the Jedi.
Return of the
really?
Jedi.
Yeah.
Yep.
What is it about Return of the Jedi for you?
I think it was the first movie, the only Star Wars movie that I saw in a movie theater was Return of the Jedi. And the second movie I ever saw in a movie theater was Spaceballs. 1986 or something like that. I was very young. So you put those two together, and that was my original. And then ATST, and hey, that's my Star Wars experience. So the two movies kind of fit together, and it was the very first movie I ever saw in a movie theater. So, yeah.
I see. Talking about Return of the Jedi, I have a little story that I'll share for a moment. I grew, actually today is May 25th. So this is the 47th anniversary of Star Wars originally being released. My birthday is actually July 25th, so in exactly 2 months from now will be my birthday. And when it came out, I was 3 years and 10 months old. I didn't see it until I was my fourth birthday. It was the first time I saw Star Wars: A New Hope in a movie theater. But I grew up on the movies, obviously. Opening night for Empire Strikes Back, opening night for Return of the Jedi, and for many years I felt that Return of the Jedi was one of my least favorite from the three.
Really?
And I watched it one time with my girlfriend, and this was now maybe about 15 years ago. She knew Star Wars, but she hadn't really sat down and just watched it all the way through. And when we got to the scene with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, and he finally, kind of takes the helmet off and he says, I want to look at you with my own eyes, she was almost in complete tears.
Really?
She was so cryy at that point because she'd been so invested in the characters at that point and got so emotional. It's the first time I've ever seen someone get emotional in a Star Wars movie like that it kind of elevated that movie up for me now a little bit as well. It has more heart, I feel, than any of the other two.
Yeah. I like RLTJ. It's my favorite.
That is a good one.
Who is your favorite character in the Star Wars world?
Leia. Or R2.
Ooh.
Very, very close, right? Yeah.
One's beauty and one's brains?
Essentially, yeah. I remember the first time I saw Leia and I was like, whoa. Absolutely got my attention. But yeah, honestly, my favorite character would be R2. I'm a total droid nerd. So R2, Leia, and from there, they're all just lightsaber wheeling, blaster packing nerds to me. I don't care about this.
It's a very, very impressive collection you have. I am curious, what advice would you have for other collectors and other potential new collectors?
Well, for potential new collectors, the internet should be your second option. You need to learn and educate yourself from local people that you can meet and see and touch and learn from them and gain some knowledge, unlike me, before you just go on the internet and start getting ripped off and wasting a bunch of money. But to a new collector, that's the first thing I can tell you. Sure, it's there, you can buy, you're probably going to pay too much. You don't know what condition it's in, you have no idea what you're doing. So learn first and then go on the internet. And as for collectors, there's not really a lot you can tell a collector that they probably don't already know. Just ask them, right? So I would say to an original collector, be nice to the new collectors. Your collection is amazing and it is cool, and we are in awe of it. But stop pretending that you're better than us and help us get to your level, because we're right behind you, right on your heels, whether you kick us or not, right? So that would be the two pieces of advice I had.
Interesting comment about what you just said. And when I approached Jack originally about doing this series, it was because I saw these over the top collections, people with movie theaters and life-size statues and props that they had purchased from the show. And that's all impressive stuff, but it was unattainable stuff for guys like me. And so I wanted to do something that was more regular Joe. And that's what I've tried to do with this series, is approach people and show them what regular, maybe I can't say regular, but slightly out of control regular people collect, and inspire others to kind of move forward and collect something along the same lines. Don't be afraid to utilize that bookshelf on that one wall, or be careful as you expand onto the third, fourth, or fifth wall or down the hallway.
Yeah. Yep. And the other aspect of that is, I see it all the time in these Facebook groups and whatnot. Hey, I found this in my mom's attic. What's it worth? And we're all sick of that. Stop doing that. We don't care if it's the truth. We don't want to hear it, right? But at the same time, how else are you going to reach out and interact with people when you don't know what you're doing anyway? That sounds like a good way for me to reach out and touch somebody. So there's a lot of bullying in the Star Wars world.
And it's kind of today's times, but I want to address another comment, and that is the worst question is the one that's not asked.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, but then you put them on a social media platform and you have 50,000 people asking the same 10 nerds the same question. I can see where it gets a little bit annoying, but there's got to be a balance. But there is no balance. I'm sure there was at some point. I missed it all because I just started 2 years ago. But, I see it all the time. And that's like, and Jack knows in the Facebook groups that I try to be part of. They're a little bit smaller, they're a lot smaller, but we don't do that to each other. We try to take care of each other. And that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? You're not going to figure it all out yourself. And you've been doing this since the 60s. You're
Ooh.
still you?
Not collecting.
No.
I just was a kid in the 60s
Oh,
and
roger
saw
that.
all
Okay.
that stuff.
Well, you've been doing it for longer than me, and you're still
Maybe
learning
a
every day.
year or
Right?
so
Maybe
more.
a year or so. We're just still learning every day.
Just recently, I decided to try to recapture that, and problem is they're trying to do it all in a short period of time, and it's crazy.
It's tough.
I do have to share with you my most recent Star Wars purchase, and we were talking about box stuff, and I really wasn't a Black Series guy, but I am an Andor series guy, and these they're not just came available, they just got discounted big time at Hasbro Plus. So I was able to get some of the Andor stuff that I liked, but as they arrived, the one thing, and before I end up losing them all here, that I just discovered and remembered to myself, the problem with the Black Series is it's got great artwork, but you can't see any of the figures unless you open up the boxes.
Yeah, I've got a mixture hodgepodge of that stuff too. I loved Andor. Andor was amazing. It's great. Andor, Mandalorian, my two favorites by far. But
and
what
there
is
was one thing I saw in your
plastic
collection
waste?
that I thought I would share with you.
Yeah, you stick a light underneath that. One of those
Not yet, but that
one of
would
those
be kind of cool.
battery powered puck lights, and it does it. See, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Guess what I'm doing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, it's a fantastic collection. Thank you for sharing it with us. And I look forward to hearing more about it down the road. And I'll be certain to send you a Facebook friend request.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
And before we break, I have to say, I saw Scott in kind of like this Facebook group where you're doing like a live feed where you're doing like Star Wars trivia with some buddies or something. Tell me a little bit quickly about some Star Wars trivia here.
That's just for fun. It's just to get people to interact with one of our giveaway groups that we're in. And we just kind of get together. And of course, I'm the 2-year-old doesn't know anything about Star Wars nerd. So I get to learn from their knowledge by reading them trivia questions. So I'm essentially educating myself whilst cheating at the game, right? But yeah, we just kind of get together and we do trivia. And we're going to try to figure out how to integrate other members into it and maybe do some giveaways and have some questions and things like that. Right now, it's just 4 knuckleheads getting together reading trivia on Facebook. That's all it is at this point.
Do you happen to have
Facebook?
It is on Facebook. Yeah. I was going to ask, do you happen to have a question in front of you? You could ask Jim and I.
Maybe. I have a whole bunch of them here. I knew you were going to ask me this, and I probably should have proofread this, but I do have a whole bunch of them here.
We can do one quick one. I don't want to give anything away, and we'll tune into your Facebook program when it comes on.
Here's a good one. You guys should know this. This is the OG stuff. Easy but hard. What surprising sound attracts wampas?
Easy, huh?
When you hear it, you're gonna be like, "Oh, dumb."
I'm gonna say the sound of a tauntaun.
No.
Then,
You're in the right. You're in the right.
Then I have a second guess.
It is Hoth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say a meteorite.
No.
No, I'm stumped.
I'll give you a hint.
I'm trying to remember what a wampa is.
A wampa with the Hoth, the big bear-looking thing.
Kind of
not the one that grabbed a hold of Luke Skywalker and hung him upside down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what attracts him.
What noise does he make?
What noise attracts him?
like Jack, I'd have to say the noise of the tauntaun.
Right. It might be
Attract him.
the radio, because he was on the radio with Han Solo, and then it came. I don't. That's a tough one.
It's the Ashmotech beeps. It's R2.
R2 is the one. Okay.
All those
Interesting.
beeping sounds. Ah,
Yeah.
see, as soon as he heard it, he's like, "That's right, I remember that in the movie."
I still don't remember that exactly in the movie. I think that was the deleted scene or something like that.
Possibly, right?
All right. Well, that's a
And
very good question.
there is a deleted scene of that
With the
whole
Wampa.
thing too.
Yeah, right. There
Wow.
is.
Wow.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll get out of here. Scott, again, thank you so much for sharing so much with us and the audience as well. If you want, send me over a link to get in touch with Richard. If there's people that are watching that want to get some 3D work from Richard.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Put the link in the description so they can kind of link right to that. Any links that you want to give me, to put in the description, we can kind of put all your links in there as well, social media and whatnot. I just want to remind everyone also to go ahead and like this video if you've made it this far in the video. Obviously, there's something that you like about this. Also, subscribe. That helps us a lot with the YouTube algorithm to kind of get the message out there and get other people involved. Jim, thank you very much for all the questions and answers. Scott, thank you for your patience and everything while we got everything set up here for you. And again, everyone, may the force be with you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.